was against the Boston Celtics versus the Cleveland Cavaliers, the 1 versus the 4 seed in the East. Then number 2, we had the New York Knicks versus the Indiana Pacers, the 2 seed versus the 6 seed in the East. And then in the West, we had the 1 seeded Oklahoma City Thunder versus the 5th seeded Dallas Mavericks. And finally, we had the 2 seeded Denver Nuggets versus the 3 seeded Minnesota Timberwolves. So those are the 4 series that we will be looking into. Let's start off with our Eastern side with the 1 seeded Boston Celtics and the 4 seeded Cleveland Cavaliers. So in this series, it went on for 5 games. You have the Boston Celtics winning 4-1, and both teams were dealing with injury in this series. You have Kristaps Porzingis, who missed the entire thing. I believe he got injured in the final game against the Heat, and so it was announced that he would be missing this entire series, and just recently they announced that he should be back midway through their next series. And on the Cavaliers side, they have their top rebounder out with Jarrett Allen, usually plays center. So taking a look at the series averages from this matchup, we have the Boston Celtics scoring an average of 108.4 points per game to the Cleveland Cavaliers 101.2. In terms of rebounds, you can very much tell that Jarrett Allen was missed because we have the Boston Celtics getting 44.2 rebounds a game to the Cavaliers 35.4. And finally, in the assist category, both teams were relatively even. You have the Celtics notching 22.6 assists per game and the Cavs getting 22.2. So you might notice that the Celtics were ever so slightly ahead or majorly ahead in every one of the major statistical categories in this series. Taking a look at the series leaders, you have Jason Tatum leading the way for the Celtics with 26.8 points per game, 10.4 rebounds per game, and 6.2 assists per game. A very solid style, and with Porzingis out, he has really taken it up a notch in his rebounding ability, getting double-digit rebounds, which is pretty remarkable. And scoring-wise, he's doing his best out there. I have seen some criticism for Tatum, but I feel like it's just because he has so much playoff experience, and he's one of those older guys now that he's just prone to a bunch of criticism for no real reason. I think that he had a very nice series, and I'll have to look up what exactly the stat was, but I did see that he was possibly the first person since LeBron to lead their team in every major category. It was something like that. I know that Jimmy Butler did a similar thing in the finals, so I'll have to find the 2 stats and compare what was really going on. I may have misinterpreted it, but some random ESPN stat type of thing for Tatum from this series. And then on the opposite side, you have Donovan Mitchell, who scored 31.7 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game, and 5.3 assists per game. He really was the heart and soul of this Cavs team. He's an exceptional playoff performer, always elevates his game to the next level once it's postseason time, but time and time again, he is unable to really move into a deeper playoff run just because his surrounding cast isn't good or random playoff chokes. I don't really know what exactly it is, but poor Donovan Mitchell was out once again. So let's take a look at how this series progressed. In Game 1, you have a blowout victory from Boston, winning 120-95 on their home court. At this point, people were already calling for the sweep, saying Cavs have no chance. This is going to be an easy trip to the Eastern Conference Finals for the Celtics. And then the Cavs kind of surprise everyone and win the next game at Boston, tying up the series 1-1. They won that game by a handy amount as well, 24 points. So return the favor the other way, 118-94. Celtics were caught flat-footed. The series is about even heading into Cleveland. And then Boston Knicks game 3, 106-93, which is, I think most people did have Boston winning in a very few amount of games. I personally, in my original bracket, had them facing the Magic rather than the Cavs, but I games regardless. And so after that, you move into game 4. At this point, it is announced that Donovan Mitchell is going to be missing this game. Karis LeVert is going to be filling in for him in the starting lineup, and yeah, Mitchell is just dealing with an injury. We won't see from him, and you got to give credit to the Cavaliers. They fought hard, without Jared Allen, without Donovan Mitchell. They are down some of their biggest names, but they fought hard, they competed, and the game was competitive at the very least. But Boston still takes it 109-102. At this point, the Celtics have a 3-1 lead, and the series moves back to Boston. And with their final game, they take it in 5, winning 113-98. So, not really much else I want to say about these two teams. Boston thus far has not been challenged that badly. You're facing a Jimmy Butler-less Heat team, and then a Cavs team that's missing Donovan Mitchell for 2 of its games, Jared Allen for all 5 of its games. Not to say that Boston isn't dealing with its own injuries, obviously. Short-handed, Kristaps Porzingis is one of your biggest acquisitions and biggest pieces on the team this year. So, yeah, let's not underplay Boston's dominance. They're really good, but it'll be interesting to see how they perform in the next round if they have to deal with a fully healthy team the entire way through. So after that, we will move into our second series from the East, which was the number 2 seeded New York Knicks versus the number 6 seeded Indiana Pacers. Taking a look at the series averages, you will find that the Knicks averaged 111.3 points per game, 115.3 points per game to the Pacers on the other hand. Then in the rebound category, you have the Knicks grabbing 40.6 boards a game to the Pacers 38.4 boards a game. You'll find that this gap is much closer than in the Celtics series, so implying that these teams aren't as far apart. They both have good rebounding talents. And then finally, you have the Knicks with 22.6 assists per game to the Pacers 30 assists per game. And that disparity is quite large. I think it's partially because New York's offense really does run through Jalen Brunson. Like, you might have Dante DiVincenzo go off for a decent amount of points as well, but Jalen Brunson is the main guy. And while he is dishing out the ball a lot, it's not nearly to the extent that Tyrese Halliburton is, in my opinion. Halliburton this year, he really asserted himself as one of the best passers in the game, putting up some of the best numbers since Steve Nash in terms of passing, at least in the first half of the season before he had his mini slump after injury. So we got 2 of our youngest point guards, or I don't know if Brunson is really that young, but 2 of our emerging point guard talents that are making a name for themselves. This is Halliburton's first real playoff run. Brunson has been in the playoffs a couple times before. He's really shown the entire league that he can elevate his game in the playoffs. He's had a lot of 40-point games, and yeah, let's take a look at their stats. Leading the series for the Knicks, you have Jalen Brunson, of course, with 29.7 points per game, 2.3 rebounds per game, and 6.1 assists per game. And then our other star, Tyrese Halliburton, had 21.3 points per game, 4.3 rebounds per game, and 7 assists per game. So, this was a fun series to track. I personally had the Knicks advancing in 6 over the Pacers, and that was not the case. Indiana would go on to take this series in 7 games, which I thought was rather unexpected. So, game by game, you have the first matchup in New York going to the Knicks. They win 121-117. I was able to tune in to the last couple minutes of this game, and it wasn't all that entertaining. Like, it was very close, but the gameplay was interrupted by a lot of calls and out-of-bounds calls, and I think Miles Turner was called for a moving screen in the last couple seconds of the game, so it wasn't really determined by on-court action, more so by penalties and things like that. And I don't really have a problem with any of the penalties that were called. It was more just boring, if it's going to end in penalties, it's not as fun as like a game winner. And then you have game 2, yet another close game, only a 9-point unfortunate victory to the Knicks, but they win 130 to 121. So the Knicks heading into Atlanta are up 2-0 over the Pacers. At this point, I felt pretty good about the series just because, I had the Knicks winning it. Then in Game 3, it was very, very close. It came down to the final couple of possessions, and you have an unlikely hero saving the day for the Indiana Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton really turned it up. He wasn't playing as aggressively in games 1 and 2, but he got his scoring prowess back. He was having a phenomenal game, and in the final couple seconds, maybe like 30 seconds left in the game, he dishes it out to Andrew Nembhard. Now, Nembhard was having a rough game. Prior to this point, 2 points in the entire course of the game. But that doesn't stop him. He drains the 3 to secure the Pacers' first win in this series. And honestly, looking back at it, this is probably the loss that New York regrets the most because it was so close. It ended up being a victory of 111 to 106 in favor of the Pacers. And New York really almost had it. Like, it was very close, very doable. And had they gotten it, they would have gone up 3-0 and ensured a victory. Instead, the Pacers keep their playoff aspirations and dreams alive. They go into the next game and they wipe the Knicks. I mean, like, absolutely lock them up. We know that the Pacers are a very offensive-oriented team. Across their first couple games, you have 117, 121, and they're losing by scoring that much because their defense is just not that good either. And then Game 3, they do a better job on defense, limiting New York to just 106 and scoring 111 on their own. And then they keep up their high-scoring offense, 121 points in the fourth game for the Pacers, but New York is only able to muster up 89 points. So, a bit worrisome at this point. Now, the series is tied up 2-2. You just got blown out. If you're New York, what are you going to do? How are you going to respond? We go into Game 5, and they just return the favor, straight up. Pacers have their worst game of the series. They score a total of 91 points, and New York hangs 121 on their head. They completely undo any shame ensued from last game. And yeah, now I feel like the New Yorkers are feeling pretty good again. Up 3-2, just need one more win and you can put them to bed. So they head into Indiana once again. And they don't get it done. You have the Pacers scoring 116 back into their high-flying offense, and the Knicks can only get to 103. And this is a more worrisome game. I think that OG Anunoby was already out for this one, but you also had Josh Hart. He injured his abdominal. He had like a ab sprain that he was dealing with. You have all these games, Tom Thibodeau, he is a good coach, but he really loves to run his players into the ground. He's got Josh Hart playing 48 minutes in multiple games. Josh Hart is all for it, but just because you can play your players for 45 minutes a game doesn't mean you should. And you're starting to see the effects of the wear and tear on these guys' bodies, especially in a longer series like this. And so, yeah, New York, they've been dropping like flies all over the year. They really battled through their injuries, but it's starting to pile up. Heading into Game 7, you're back in New York. You've got OG Anunoby trying to play through injury. You've got Josh Hart trying to play through injury. You have Jalen Brunson, trying to will this team into a victory. And it's all just too much. OG barely plays. Josh Hart has to leave the game again. Jalen Brunson fractures his hand. It's over. Dante DiVincenzo does his best. He puts up like 37 points, I want to say, in Game 7. Shooting really well. I think he put up 9 threes as well. So he gave it his all, but like they were just spread too thin at that point. And on the other hand, the Pacers, they put up their most points in any of these games, 130, and they set a record for the best field goal percentage by any team in a Game 7 history. So, yeah, it's not just that the Knicks got injured or that the Pacers got lucky. No, they definitely showed up and showed out. They played an amazing game to finish off the series, and they told everyone, like, hey, we're not done. And so, I mean, I didn't consider it that unlikely that they were going to beat the Bucks, especially with no Giannis, but this was surprising to me. So, the Pacers, deep playoff run, in Tyrese Halliburton's first year in the playoffs. Props to him. And so, yeah, New York, that was a fun run. They have to retool, get healthy. I'm excited to see what they have to offer next year. Unlike the Cavs, I think that these guys have a pretty bright future. The Cavs have to kind of deal with all the like Donovan Mitchell rumors and drama, because people are gonna try and want to trade for him. They're gonna have all these reports saying that they are trying to trade him away or trade to get a piece. I don't know. I think it'll be a hectic offseason for Cleveland, whereas for New York, there's always a billion rumors regarding New York, but this is the best team that we've seen in a while, and if they just get healthy, they'll already be pretty good. But if they can add another piece, maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't, I don't know. It's hard to know whether you just run it back with the same squad or you try and tinker. They'll figure it out. But that is that. After that, we will move into the Western Conference. So first up, in our first series, we had the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Dallas Mavericks. This was a 6-game series, and the most interesting thing about this was both teams scored the exact same number of points across all 6 games. Yeah, taking a look at the series averages, you will find that both teams averaged 106 points flat. So, you might be wondering, what is that over 6 games? Well, 636. But in the rebounding category, you have an edge by the Mavericks. They got 45.2 rebounds per game to the 40.5 of the Thunder. And then in the assist department, slight edge to the Mavericks with 24.7 assists a game to the 23.3 by the Thunder. So, this matchup featured 2 MVP runner-ups. You had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, also known as SGA, who led this young Thunder core to the first seed in the West. A very impressive feat, especially with how stacked the West was this year. He also put up over, I think, the most 30-point games of anyone in the league. And then on the other hand, you had Luka Doncic, who had the best combined scores since the merger, the most points, assists, and rebounds altogether that we've seen in I don't know, maybe 50 years. I don't know when the merger is, I just know that it was since the merger. But yeah, 2 ballers. And so, in this series, it was no different. They both led their teams respectively. Shai had 32.2 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, and 7.3 assists per game, to Luka's 24.7 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game, and 8.7 assists per game. Mind you, Luka's numbers are slightly down because he has been struggling a bit in these playoffs. In the first and second series, he's just not been nearly as efficient. All of his shooting stats are down, not as good from the field. I want to say 42% from the field. 3-pointers are not that great, and even his free throws are down. So, though he is struggling scoring the ball, he's still putting up almost 25 points a game, and yeah, he's still impacting basketball in all the other ways that you can. So, let's take a look at how this series unfolded. In Game 1, you have the Thunder handing the Mavericks a whopping defeat. They won by 22, 117 to 95, the Thunder do, and this is in their home court, so very important victory there. Sets the tone for the rest of the series. And then, next game, Dallas claps back. They respond, winning 119 to 110. So, just like that, they've evened up the series, and they steal home court from the Thunder. So, we get to head into Game 3, which is the first one played in Dallas. And this is a very close game, very well-fought battle. I don't really recall. I think I saw the next one. Yeah, I didn't catch a lot of the games in this series, but it seems like it came down to the last couple possessions because it was 105-101. Probably have Kyrie to thank for that. I know that once again Kyrie was phenomenal in the second half of these games. His splits from the first half to the second half are mesmerizing. It's so weird that like you can have a player who really just turns it on in the second half every single game. But that's what he does. Very clutch. I've really suffered from some of his shots, but the guy is great. Anywho, so yeah, Dallas takes the 2-1 lead, and they have another game at home, so things are looking up for Dallas. But the Thunder, they do some thinking, they do some good preparation, and they respond with their own close victory. Game 3 was decided by 4 points. Game 4 was also decided by 4 points, but this time in favor of the Thunder. They were able to win 100-96. And this was a big backbreaker for the Mavericks because they knew they had the opportunity to go up 3-1 in this series. Luka, in the last minute, missed a couple free throws that would have given them the lead. It would have really helped them. I think they would have won the game had he made his free throws. And then just the free throw disparity over the entire course of the game. I think both teams shot almost an equal amount, somewhere around 24 free throws, but the Mavericks missed so many more. And in a game where you lose by 4 points, you really start to kick yourself and think about it. So, yeah, the Mavs drop one that they easily could have won. And then we go into Game 5. Game 5, it is in OKC once again, but Dallas takes it. They win by a healthy margin, winning by 12 points, holding OKC to 92 while scoring 104 on their own. And then you have Game 6. Game 6 series travels back to Dallas. You've got Oklahoma City. If they want to stay in this series, they have to win this game. And so they come out, and through most of the game, it looked like they were going to force a Game 7. It was not looking very good for the Mavericks. I think at one point they fell down 17 points in the third quarter. I know I was busy for it, but I tuned in. I was just checking the score, and I saw like halfway through the third, the Mavs were down 15, and I was like, ooh, okay. I personally, in this series, had the Mavericks advancing in 6, so I was a bit bummed out, but I had kind of mentally prepared for a Game 7 where hopefully the Mavericks could win it. And then a few hours later, I got a text from my friend saying like, wow, Kyrie is so good. And I was like, huh? I checked on the score and I was like, oh wow, okay, I guess the Mavericks won. So I got to watch like the last couple minutes uninterrupted. And yeah, really it wasn't just Kyrie, it was also clutch free throws from PJ Washington. You also had Derek Jones Jr. making a very, very tough shot. And yeah, the Thunder kind of blew it. An amazing game from Shea. Shea really fought hard in the game, put up some great numbers, shooting very efficiently. I think he went like 4 of 5 from 3. And yeah, all around very good game. But he had a costly mistake. With just a few seconds left in the game, he dove towards a PJ Washington standing in the corner who was about to take a 3. PJ Washington, he double clutched on the 3, and Shea was called for the foul. They went to go review it, and yeah, it was confirmed that it was a foul, and that too, it was 3 shots, not just 2, which really hurt the Thunder, especially because they just lost their last timeout, so they can't even advance the ball. So PJ Washington makes both of the first 2, and then he intentionally misses the third to run the clock out. Chet Holmgren grabs the rebound, tosses it closer to their basket with Jalen Williams, kind of by like the half-court line, and he just throws one up like a Hail Mary and hopes that it goes in, but he's way off the mark, understandably so. Who's making a half-court game winner in the playoffs? It doesn't really happen that often, but just like that, the Mavericks really steal that game back, being down so much, and yeah, the efforts of Derek Jones Jr., who really reinvented his brand, his career in this series, it felt like last 3 games in a row, I think he's at new career highs in playoff scoring. Each and every game he just scored more and more. He just kept breaking his own record. An amazing pickup for Dallas. And then you also have PJ Washington. He has that stance that everyone's been making fun of, trying to clown him during this series and the previous series. You had Paul George impersonating it. You had one of the Jalen Williamses impersonating it. PJ Washington is always the last man left standing with that mean smug stance. But great final game by Luka as well. Even though he did struggle in some of the others, put up a triple-double, like 30-point triple-double in the win. So, congrats to the Mavericks. They make it back to the Western Conference Finals for the second time in 3 years, which is really funny when you think about it. 3 years ago they were facing off against the Warriors in this stage, and then last year they missed the playoffs completely after trading for Kyrie, and it was just like such a steep fall off, and now they're right back. So way to go on them. They really did a full 360, and it should be a fun series going forward. As for Shea and the rest of the Thunder, I think their biggest need is for a big. They have Chet, and Chet is incredibly skilled, phenomenal player, but I don't know if he's really meant to be playing the 5 in this league, because he just can't grab rebounds over some of these bigger bodied dudes like Jonas Valanciunas, or obviously he's not playing right now, but like, how's Chet really going to compete against a Steven Adams on the boards? So I've seen that the Thunder, their biggest necessity at this point is to go get a true rebounder, someone who can fill out the 5 spot. You move Chet into the 4, then you have Jalen Williams and Shea and I think Lou Dort. That rounds out the starting 5. Yeah, I guess you move Dort into the 3, unless Dort already plays the 3. I don't know. Basically, Josh Giddey is out. But yeah, I'm not too worried about the Thunder. I think that they'll pick up someone. As I mentioned in a previous video, I think it'd be crazy if they got Kevin Durant back. It would be kind of fun. But rebounding is a bigger issue for them than just a vet. So yeah. Oh, also shout out to Derek Lively Jr. He did not make the first round, or not the first round, the first team all-rookie team, but he played very well in the series, and I believe I saw something about him having the highest plus-minus of a rookie in a playoff series. I don't know if it was in this stage or just ever, but that is not a small feat, so great job to him. And finally, we move into our last playoff series from round 2 of the playoffs, and this was the number 2 seeded Denver Nuggets versus the number 3 seeded Minnesota Timberwolves. Here, the series averages, you had 97.6 points per game by the defending champion Denver Nuggets and 102.7 points per game by the Minnesota Timberwolves. Then, in terms of rebounds per game, you had 40 rebounds for the Nuggets and 42.9 rebounds for the T-Wolves. And then finally, 23 assists a game for the Nuggets and 24.3 assists a game for the Timberwolves. You might notice that the Timberwolves swept in all the major statistical categories. Kind of big, especially when facing off against the Denver Nuggets, the defending champs. Series leaders. There are a lot of narratives, a lot of hot topics and discussions during this series, and the two faces of each team. You have Nikola Jokic versus Anthony Edwards. It kind of really became that at certain points. Like, the media did a really good job of convincing people that it wasn't a team versus Jokic and Ant. And so, Jokic, he held it down. He did his best in this series, putting up some great performances. He finishes with 29 points per game, 11.4 rebounds per game, and 7.9 assists per game, with the other team having 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert. It's going to be one of those things where it's like, the Nuggets, the Nuggets lost. Minnesota advanced in 7 games. They won 4-3. But it'll be one of those things where I feel like they'll talk about how Jokic kind of wasn't able to come out on top and how the Timberwolves had the clamps. And yes, the Timberwolves did have the clamps, but not necessarily on Jokic. Like, Rudy Gobert was getting cooked by him a lot of the times, and Jokic has, like, an amazing stat line nonetheless. They just didn't win. It's like LeBron in that 2015 championship series against the Warriors, where Iguodala won Finals MVP for his performance on LeBron. Like, yes, LeBron, maybe he was limited, and obviously his team didn't win, but when you look at the numbers, it's like, holy hell, this guy still scored like 30 points a game. So, yeah. And then on the other side of things, you have Anthony Edwards, the young star. He averaged 27.7 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game, and 5.7 assists per game. So, this was a very fun series. I watched this series much more than any of the other ones, just because I was so invested in what was going to happen. Game 1, you have Anthony Edwards leading the way for the T-Wolves. He drops over 40 points, and they were able to steal Game 1 in Denver. So, Game 1, you have the Minnesota Timberwolves stealing home court from the Denver Nuggets. They win 106-99. Anthony Edwards drops over 40 points in this first game, and though it was a bit stunning, it wasn't anything too crazy. It just set the scene, and taunting a little bit here and there. He was taunting a lot in the last series, so yeah. Then you head into Game 2. This one, stakes are a bit different because Rudy Gobert is going to be missing the game for the birth of his child. So you have to wonder, how are the Minnesota Timberwolves going to fare without their Defensive Player of the Year? I think it was just announced at that point that he was Defensive Player of the Year. So they did not struggle at all. They actually dominated the Nuggets even harder than they did in Game 1. Game 1, I think it was like a bit of a runaway towards the end, and like they kind of closed the gap, the Nuggets did, but it wasn't particularly close in the last final minutes. Game 2 was not close at all. Like, from halftime itself, it was such a big lead, like 25, 30 point lead, and it never really got any better for them. So, all of a sudden you have Minnesota going up 2-0 on the defending champs, and now the series is heading to Minnesota. So, there's a bit of panic, there's a bit of fear. At this point, Nikola Jokic, he is awarded his third MVP in 4 years, and he's getting a lot of hate. Sometimes MVPs, they are praised and things like that. A lot of people wanted Shea to win it. Shaq wanted Shea to win it. He told Jokic to his face, I think Shea should have won it over you. But Jokic was kind of just like, whatever. And a lot of people were saying, like, Stephen A. Smith saying, ooh, the Denver Nuggets are going to get swept. And people are kind of like starting to question if Jokic is really as good as he is being portrayed to be. And yeah, Denver hears all of this and they decide to respond in their own fashion. They win by 27 points in Game 3. So Minnesota, Game 2, they win by 26. And so, yeah, Denver returns the favor with a slightly larger blowout victory. They just played much better. It was an all-around very good team game. Just everyone performed to their actual ability. Jamal Murray struggled immensely in Games 1 and 2. He put together a solid game in Game 3. Jokic had a solid game. Aaron Gordon had a solid game. I think MPJ was fine in this one. And so, yeah, they avoid getting swept. They avoid, like, embarrassing themselves too hard. And then we go into Game 4, and they manage to win again. Denver does. So they win 115-107, and that was really despite a very good performance from Anthony Edwards. He puts up over 40 once again. But Cat and Gobert just have abysmal games, not good at all. And a something like that, and the dude just cannot miss. So he scores a very important 27 points. Jokic once again plays a solid game, and the Nuggets, things were looking awful for them. They're going on the road down 0-2, and they managed to tie things up. So now the entire series has basically reset. Both teams have traded turns, blowing each other out. Pause. And then you have Game 5, and to me, Game 5 was probably the most important of the series because it kind of determines everything going ahead. And great game, great matchup. You had Jokic putting on one of the best performances I've ever witnessed in terms of dominance. He really attacked Rudy Gobert the entire night. Just went after this defensive player of the year and cooked him, even at halftime. Like, he had already scored so much. He had such a great stat line that Draymond Green was on the halftime show saying, like, dude, this is barbecue chicken. He is making Rudy Gobert look like barbecue chicken. And, yeah, they just kept digging it deeper in the second half, and they end up winning by 15 points. The Timberwolves, they tried their best, but they couldn't handle him. It was just too much. And so now Denver is up 3-2. All of a sudden everything has shifted. All the momentum is in Denver's favor. It's not looking good. Draymond is already saying, like, these Timberwolves are out. They look unmotivated. They know they lost. But Anthony Edwards is not giving up. He reportedly tells one of the Denver staffers, like, hey, we'll see you back here for Game 7. And yeah, he's telling the media, like, you know, we're not done. And then head into Game 6. My goodness. 45-point victory by the Minnesota Timberwolves. They limit Denver to just 70 points. I don't know if I've ever seen one team dismantle another team like this in the playoffs before. They were hounding them. It was honestly so crazy. I was watching this game. Denver starts off on a good run. They're up 9-2 to start the game, and then they just forgot how to play basketball. Like, Minnesota was so good from that point onwards. They go into, like, I don't know, halftime up maybe like 25 or something like that. And then in the third quarter it just kept building. By the time there was 10 minutes left in the game, they were up like 30 something, so I just turned it off. It was done. But I was shocked with the performance. Everyone was playing really well, and I think finished with 27, because like once he got to 27 there's just no reason for him to play any further. Rudy Gobert kind of switched off. They switched Cat onto Jokic, and Jokic still had a decent game. Like, it's not like he did really badly, but Jamal Murray was not good at all. I think the worst game I've ever seen Jamal Murray play. He was getting locked up. He was taking horrible shots. He started off the game like 1 of 12. Really could not do anything in that one. And you have Jokic standing at the edge of the court for the entire fourth quarter, just watching the game unravel. And in his post-game interview, he's just like, well, it's not every day that you lose by 45, so kind of just have to take it in and be impressed. The other team did a great job. And so everyone was like, this is the scariest I've ever seen Jokic. That's spoken like a man who's about to drop like 50, 15, and 10 in the next game. And so, yeah, then Ant, in the post-game, he confirms that he told that the Denver staffer that they were coming back for Game 7. He also says that this will be the best Game 7 in NBA history. And, he might not have been wrong. It was a fantastic Game 7. You have, right out of the gates, this is happening in Denver. Denver comes out hot. Jamal Murray, I think people had written him off. I certainly had written him off. I really thought that this matchup was going to be between in Jokic, who is going to be the bigger star to lead their team to the promised land. And, Anthony Edwards was not looking good in the first half. Jokic was playing well, but really it was all Jamal Murray. He enters halftime with like 24 points. Legacy game, you could say. He is on one, giving it his all. I honestly forgot about his game-breaking ability just because it was like after the Lakers series. Like in the Lakers series, he didn't have necessarily the best of nights, but he had two very, very clutch shots to win those two games for the Nuggets. Obviously, he was playing very well, and in this series, he just hadn't been that same guy. Struggled a lot in Game 1 and 2, played a bit better in Game 3, played horribly in Game 6, and then Game 7, Jamal Murray legacy game, he was showing us all why Jokic and Murray are considered one of the best 1-2 punch combos in the league. And so they go up by 15 at half. They build on that lead in the third quarter. It is now a 20-point lead, I believe, in Game 7 history for, I don't know if it's this series or just all time. There's like the last biggest deficit overcome was 11 points in a Game 7 at halftime. So things are looking pretty nice for the Denver Nuggets. And the Minnesota Timberwolves just switched back into their Game 6 mode. They turned it on. They absolutely collapsed that lead in the third quarter itself. They were losing by 20 points, and then they absolutely turned it around, and they managed to hit, they got a very hype dunk from Ant. They got a very crucial 3 to end the quarter, and now it's 66-67. It's a 1-point game heading into the fourth. Anyone could win it. And I will say, Anthony Edwards did not play well in this game. He had some very high energy shots. He provided a lot of good defense, but bro was not shooting well. The real stars of the show, I would say Mike Conley, what's his name, Jaden McDaniels, and Cat down the stretch in the last couple minutes. It's going back and forth. It's highly contested. Jokic is playing with his heart on the line. Jamal Murray still not as effective as he was in the first half at all, but he's giving it his all. And these guys, they can only do so much. Minnesota is just hounding them every single loose ball. It looks like their life depends on it. I kid you not. In those last 2 minutes, it was just bodies flying everywhere. I've never seen so many steals, so many rips, so many dives for balls. Pause. And then, there's just too big of a gap, and the Timberwolves basically have it. There was this one point where it looked like maybe the Nuggets could put together a run. There was a missed shot by, I want to say, Mike Conley, and if Denver had rebounded it and taken it the other way, it could have worked, but Karl Anthony Towns had a very clutch putback dunk, and that kind of sealed it. So then after that, you've got a little bit of taunting from Ant. He's waving to the crowd, saying goodbye. Then he throws the ball to Jaden McDaniels. Jaden McDaniels tries to bounce this thing for a self alley-oop up 8 with 20 seconds left. Then there's some words exchanged between the two teams. They didn't like that for sure. And it's just on one. And when it's all said and done, the Timberwolves win the series. Shocking to me. It's not that I didn't think they couldn't do it. Of all the teams to take down Denver, I did think that the Timberwolves were well built for it, because you have 3 bigger bodied guys between Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, and Naz Reid. And if you look at the formula that beat the Nuggets in years prior, that Lakers bubble year, they did have a lot of big this game 7. He played, 47 minutes. But you've got some very nice minutes from Nas Reed. 2 of your star players doing very well in Gobert and Cat, and it's just too much. And so, yeah, even though the Nuggets won it all last year and they were favored to win it all in parts of the season, they had very good odds. I thought that they would win this series for sure. Well, yeah, no, I thought that they would. I thought that they would win it in 6, especially after that Game 5 victory, but then they lost by 45, and then they lost again. I really didn't expect the Timberwolves to do it, so big props to them. They really battled hard, and their defense is immaculate. You know, to see them suffocate another team like that in the playoffs, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a 45-point margin of victory before with my own eyes. So, yeah, that's a scary team. I would not want to be playing them. But yeah, let's conclude with the series leaders. You've got Nikola Jokic. He had 29 points per game, 11.4 rebounds per game, 7.9 assists per game. And on the other hand, you have Anthony Edwards continuing a very nice postseason run with 27.7 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game, and 5.7 assists per game. And yeah, that very entertaining young fellow, you know, just the way he talks to the media, the way he talks about his team. He plays with a great intensity. He's so athletic and bouncy, you know. He's one to root for. I think that the way that we are talking about him now, the narrative surrounding him is going to switch. It happens to all young players. We're very quickly and surely entering that range where he's going from a beloved young player to someone who is going to perceive hate. You know, he's gotten to that standard, that threshold where, like, yeah, he is a superstar, but now people are going to hate him. Especially because he likes to talk trash. So as lovable as he may be to some people, those who enjoy what he's doing, the ones on the other end are going to not like him at all. And that's just how the game evolves. Anyways, so thanks for watching. If you enjoy content like this, yeah, this is my channel. I do this for fun. I'll be putting out a couple more videos as the week goes on. Don't really know what kinds. I listened to the new Billie Eilish album. I have some thoughts on that. I don't know if anyone cares to hear about these thoughts. I could put it out there, but it is a little bit more different. I had that one video where I talked about the Kendrick Lamar and Drake rap beef, so I could incorporate more musical videos, you know, music review type things, but I don't know if anyone really cares about that. And then I also have like a conventional ASMR video that I've planned out. That one I'm a bit excited for. You know, I'm going to try my best to remember to record the audio this time, and yeah, hopefully it'll be good. Let's see. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching.